My husband is a lawyer. In my past life, he begged me to exploit a legal loophole for the sake of his white moonlight. Not only that, he reported me, costing me my job and driving me to a depression that ended my life. Now, reborn and back again, I'm going to make them regret this. 1. When I awoke, I was surprised to find myself standing in my home study. Ever since I was barred from practicing law, this study and I had become strangers. He spent more and more time in his study, and we grew increasingly distant. Was he afraid of stirring up my painful memories, or of me discovering some secret? Later, Song Changming even changed the lock on his study door. At this moment, the familiar scene in the study left me feeling somewhat dazed. Song Changming was looking at me with a pitiful expression, half kneeling before me, holding my hand in a placating manner, his eyes full of pleading. Tang Tang, I've taken on another major project. This one is a heavy workload, and I'll likely need to spend a lot of time researching legal materials. I might not be able to make plans for your birthday. Please don't be angry. The same old spiel, the same old excuse. In my past life, my husband Song Changming and I had been married for 5 years, and we had always been a harmonious and loving couple, as devoted as ever. So, when he was faced with that tricky legal case, he begged me to lend him a hand. He ultimately won the lawsuit, with the defendant losing due to insufficient grounds. Song Changming's reputation soared because of it, and he became a renowned lawyer. But I only found out later that the client in that case was his unforgettable white moonlight. It was for the case of Zhao Songan, my unattainable ideal. Yet, after the case concluded, Zhao Songan went and publicized the whole affair. What I found even harder to stomach was that she actually filed a lawsuit against me, and the witness she called was none other than my own husband, Song Changming. I was fired and barred from practicing any related legal work. The one who took my place was none other than Zhao Songan. With her husband's unwavering support, she became a legal professional, and they became inseparable. Side by side every day, they shared common interests and even the same commute to work. Meanwhile, I drifted further and further away from him. After it all happened, I raged, I made a scene, I lost my mind. But Song Changming said to me, Tang Tang, what you're doing is wrong. Besides, if you lose your job, you still have me. You can go back to taking care of the family in Dandan. But Songan is all alone. She really needs this job to survive. He made it sound so noble and righteous, conveniently forgetting how he had knelt before me in the study that day, begging for my help. In the end, looking at my newborn daughter, I had no choice but to give in. But after giving in, I realized that in life, once you take one step back, 1,000 more will follow. In the end, no one remembers your good deeds, only your worst moments. Just as I was lost in thought, Song Changming interrupted my train of thought once again. Tang Tang, what's wrong? You're scaring me. Talk to me, please, don't just shut me out. I looked up and met his concerned gaze. Everything from my past life felt like an illusion, but this time, I won't make the same foolish mistake again. I nodded, smiling at Song Changming. Don't worry about the preparations. It's fine if we skip the birthday celebration. Really. With that, I turned and left the study. Song Changming was stunned for a couple of seconds. My response had clearly taken him by surprise. 2. I left the study and went straight to the office. After a busy morning, just as I was about to head to the cafeteria for lunch, I looked up and saw Song Changming and Zhao Songan. They had likely come for a legal consultation and seemed very pleased with the outcome. They were walking down the corridor, chatting and laughing, with Song Changming thoughtfully carrying Zhao Songan's bag for her. Your bag doesn't look big, but it's surprisingly heavy. What treasures have you got in there, brother Changming? What's in this bag is our little secret. I can't tell you men what's inside. I frowned, trying hard to remember. In the 5 years I'd been married to Song Changming, he had never once offered to carry my bag for me like this, nor had he ever chatted so intimately about its contents. But thinking about it now, it doesn't matter anymore. Some things I should have seen clearly in my past life. I turned and continued towards the cafeteria, but had only taken a couple of steps before a voice from behind called out to me, Ji Tang, take these two to the cafeteria. I turned back, our eyes met, and Song Changming's expression was somewhat awkward. I showed no particular reaction, simply giving my colleague a nod. No introduction, no greeting. Song Changming followed close behind me, quickly catching up. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but Zhao Songan beat him to it. Sister Ji Tang, if I'd known you were here, I wouldn't have bothered brother Changming for help. I just needed his assistance with a case this time. You don't mind, do you? I was a little surprised at first that Zhao Songyun knew me, but I quickly understood. After all, she's had her eye on Song Changming for a long time. Of course she'd know the person standing in her way. If it were the old me, seeing this scene, I might have held back out of consideration for Song Changming's reputation, but now, no one is more important than myself. I smiled at Zhao Songyun and said, "It's only right that you went to him. After all, we're not close, and I couldn't have helped you anyway." As soon as the words left my mouth, the smile on Zhao Songyun's face instantly froze. Song Changming's gaze held a flicker of surprise as he looked at me. It was probably because I had never so blatantly disregarded his pride like I did today. I ignored his mood, got my food, and headed straight back to the office. Not long after, a knock sounded at the office door. Thinking it was a colleague delivering documents, I didn't even look up and just told them to leave it on the table by the door. It wasn't until a shadow fell over the sunlight in front of me that I noticed Song Changming standing there, a bottle of yogurt in his hand. Seeing that I'd only eaten half my meal, he couldn't help but ask with concern, "It's the middle of the day and you barely touched your food. Are you feeling unwell?" I didn't answer, just stared straight at him for a long moment. He grew visibly uncomfortable under my gaze, instinctively reaching up to touch his face and smooth his hair. "What's wrong? Did I say something incorrect?" I shook my head. "You must have forgotten about my stomach condition. The doctor insists I eat small, frequent meals and avoid eating too much at once." He froze for a moment, a flicker of fear crossing his eyes, his hand pausing midair as he was fixing his hair. "How can you call this forgetting? It's more like you never cared, never gave it a second thought." Oh, I know. I was just worried you ate too much, so I bought you some yogurt to help with digestion. Don't forget to drink it later." He placed the yogurt on my desk, flustered and at a loss. I could hear the guilt in his words, clear as day, but after 5 years of marriage, how many times has Song Changming said things like this? By the next day, it's all forgotten, wiped clean from his mind. I used to tell myself not to sweat the small stuff. As long as this man loves you, that should be enough. But the truth is, if he can't even be bothered with the details concerning your health and well-being, how could he possibly love you? 3. Seeing that I remained silent for a long time, Song Changming eventually chose to leave. Before he left, I told him to take that bottle of yogurt with him. As much as I hate to admit it, he was never really attentive to me. But under the weight of his insistent gaze, I finally explained, "I never drink red date yogurt. When have you ever seen me eat anything red date flavored?" Song Changming stood outside the door, stunned for a long time. He looked at me with a complicated expression, as if trying to recall if I had ever eaten red dates in the 5 years we'd been married. It's a shame he never really cared about me. So how could he possibly remember all those little moments from the past? After a long pause, he finally spoke up slowly to apologize. "I'm sorry, Tang Tang, I must have remembered wrong. I thought your favorite was red date yogurt." In that instant, a whirlwind of emotions churned inside me. I couldn't tell if it was more heartache or resignation. I bit my lip and gave him a faint smile. "It's fine. It's not like we just met yesterday. I know how it is." Hearing this, he let out a sigh of relief and smiled back at me. "Leave work early tonight, I'll pick you up. And we'll go home together. I'll make you something delicious." I nodded. After Song Changming left, I took a bottle of red date yogurt from the drawer and drank it quietly. The human heart truly is the most fragile thing when put to the test. A single, ambiguous remark is enough to reveal how much this man truly cares for you. The everyday traces of life are a complete blank in his memory, but I doubt he's this indifferent to everyone. At the very least, he wouldn't be like this with Zhao Songyun. As I threw the yogurt bottle into the trash, I saw Song Changming and Zhao Songyun through the window. The wind was howling outside. He thoughtfully took off his coat and held it over Zhao Songyun to shield her. I couldn't hear what they were saying. Zhao Songyun hung her head, tears slowly trickling down her face. Song Changming raised his hand, and the next moment, the two embraced, finally, supporting each other. They disappeared from my sight. Not long after, I received a message, "Tang Tang, I'm so sorry, I have to go to the office to look up some materials tonight. Please head home first. I'll cook for you another day." I read it over and over a few times, and finally replied with a single "okay." I don't know if he was looking up information, but I do know he was definitely keeping Zhao Songyun company. When quitting time came, I threw on my coat and left the office. It was windy today, with a light drizzle coming down. Song Changming didn't show up after all. I made it home in the light rain, my coat and the ends of my hair already damp. I sneezed a few times in a row but didn't think much of it. It wasn't until Song Changming returned that I realized I was sick and running a fever. He came to me for my opinion on Zhao Songen's case, groggy and dragged out of bed. My mind was a complete fog, and for the longest time, I couldn't utter a single word. Song Changming was taken aback for a moment, clearly not expecting me to remain completely silent. Chapter 2. When I didn't answer, he stood up expressionlessly. Go to sleep, then. I refuse to believe I can't solve this case without you. Sometimes, I find it all very strange. He saw how pale and unwell I looked, yet he didn't offer a single word of concern, only criticism. Yet, if Zhao Songen so much as encounters a minor hiccup, he's the first to know, even from miles away. Soon after, I heard the heavy slam of the door as Song Changming stormed out. I knew he was angry. In the past, whenever he got angry, my first instinct was to reflect on myself. I would always make excuses for him and then find fault with my own actions. In this household, I've always made a habit of putting him first. Only now have I realized how few things in this house truly belong to me. Early the next morning, I drafted a divorce agreement and left it on the coffee table. As I was about to leave, I noticed I had forgotten to take off my wedding ring. This ring was custom designed by Song Changming and me for our wedding, engraved with our initials. For the past 5 years of our marriage, I've cherished this wedding ring like a treasure, carefully polishing and protecting it every single day. Song Changming has laughed at me more than once. It's just a ring. If it gets damaged, I'll just buy you another one. He was right. It was just a ring. I took it off, tossed it into the trash can without a second thought, and left that house for good. I wheeled my suitcase to the office and applied for a dorm room. I had just finished moving my luggage into the room when the phone rang. I checked my phone and saw it wasn't a call from Song Changming. Is this Ms. Ji Tang? You had a prenatal checkup scheduled for today. Why haven't you come in yet? It suddenly dawned on me that today was the day for my 3-month prenatal checkup. As fate would have it, I ran into Song Changming and Zhao Songen as soon as I arrived at the hospital. He was helping Zhao Songen walk slowly out of the corridor, and we came face to face. I stood by the roadside, watching Song Changming's car vanish swiftly from sight, feeling an unexpected calm within. There was a time when his every move would stir my emotions, but now, it all just feels like nothing much. I took a deep breath and turned to walk towards the nearby bus stop. Since I've already decided to let go, there's no point in dwelling on the little details of the past anymore. I boarded the bus and headed to the office. My mind was racing with thoughts during the journey, but most of them were plans and hopes for the future. Upon arriving at the office, I threw myself into my work, trying to stay busy and keep those chaotic thoughts at bay. In the afternoon, I received a message from Song Changming. Tang, I'm sorry, Songen is just too scared right now. I have to go check on her. You'll have to get home on your own tonight. I'll be back later. I read the message, a cold sneer curling at the corner of my lips. That's him, alright, always putting Zhao Songen first, always dismissing my feelings, but I don't care anymore. I replied with a simple okay, and went back to work. After work that evening, I returned home to find that Song Changming still hadn't come back. I walked over to the coffee table, picked up the divorce agreement, and read through it carefully once more. Once I was satisfied everything was in order, I left one copy for him and kept the other for myself. Then, I began to pack my things. I packed my clothes, books, and a few other small items into my suitcase. This home, into which I had poured all my heart and soul, now felt nothing but strange and cold. Once everything was packed, I pulled my suitcase and walked out the door. I didn't look back, nor did I linger. I knew, this time, I had truly let go. I arrived at the company-assigned dormitory, put my suitcase away, and began setting up my own little world. Though simple, it was filled with my own presence and warmth. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, filled with a sense of ease and freedom I had never known before. I knew many challenges and hardships still lay ahead, but I believed that by facing them bravely, I could overcome them all. As for Song Changming, he had become a part of my past. I would carry this experience with me as I moved forward. The next day, I got up early to go to the hospital for the abortion procedure. Lying on the operating table, I felt a pang of sadness, but it was overshadowed by a much greater sense of relief. I knew, deep down, that this decision was right. After the surgery, I returned to my dormitory and lay down to rest. I sent a message to Song Changming, telling him I had made my decision and that he should look at the divorce papers on the coffee table when he got back. Then, I turned off my phone and let myself completely unwind. Early the next morning, I received a message from Song Changming. Hey Tang Tang, are you up? I'm bringing breakfast back. Is there anything you'd like to eat? The moment I saw that message, I knew he hadn't come home all night. He hadn't even returned by now. Where he spent the night was painfully obvious. I didn't reply to his message, throwing myself into my work instead. I saw Song Changming again that evening, just after I'd finished work. Late at night, the dormitory door was knocked upon, the sound urgent and violent. I opened the door to find him standing there, panting, his eyes red. He stared at me, motionless. His usually meticulous hair was disheveled, as if he hadn't had a moment to fix it. Tang Tang, I finally found you. Why did you decide to leave without a word? Did I do something wrong? Even if I'm to be condemned, at least let me know what for, please. It seemed he must have gone home and seen the divorce papers I left behind. That's why I followed you here, to get an answer. I crossed my arms and took 2 steps back from Song Changming. Under his panicked gaze, you didn't do anything wrong. It's my fault. We're not right for each other. I've already signed the divorce papers. You go back and sign them too. And we can set a time to finalize the divorce. I didn't say anything about Zhao Songan, nor did I mention anything I had seen. After all, he's Zhao Songan's lawyer now. He could come up with 10,000 perfectly legitimate reasons for them to be together. Seeing how unnaturally calm I was, Song Changming was the one who completely panicked this time. He stepped forward and grabbed my wrist. Tang Tang, are you angry? I know I've been neglecting you lately. But you have to understand, I was working. Please don't be angry anymore. Okay, let's just go home. I wrenched my arm away from him with force, seeing his red-rimmed eyes and the stubborn refusal to leave written all over his face. I suddenly found him rather exasperating. Song Changming, stop playing the fool with me. I don't believe for a second that you don't know why I'm leaving. You're a high-powered lawyer who's handled countless cases. Yet you can't even see what's right in front of you when it comes to matters of the heart. Do I have to spell it out and humiliate you before you'll accept it? His thin lips were already pressed into a tight, hard line. Faced with my barrage of accusations, he couldn't muster a single word in his own defense. I shot him a glance and continued. Song Changming, do you think you're so clever that I wouldn't figure it all out? Or that you could just smooth things over with me no matter what happened? I didn't. His sudden roar triggered the motion sensor lights in the hallway. Leaning against the wall by the door, breathing heavily, I have never done anything to wrong you. Everything I'm doing now is a struggle, an effort, for our beautiful future life. His high-sounding words couldn't help but make me recall my past life, and the things he said when my reputation was utterly ruined. After he testified in court that I had violated work discipline, I was fired and barred from the profession, instantly becoming the black sheep of the entire legal community. Meanwhile, he stood tall and imposing, even earning himself a reputation for upholding justice at the expense of family ties. He declared with righteous conviction that he could support me so I wouldn't have to work, suggesting I become a housewife and take care of the children, yet he was always seen with Zhao Songan. A picture-perfect couple that made everyone envious. Even on the day I died of a broken heart, he was still wrapped up in tender affection with Zhao Songan, so everything he did was for me, for our wonderful life together. I won't believe a single word of his lies anymore. Song Changming, not every divorce requires evidence. If you refuse to sign, trust me, I have more than one way to make this happen. And another thing, do you even know which day I left that divorce agreement at home? With that, I slammed the door shut. In the flickering light by the window, a solitary figure could be seen, standing motionless for a long, long time. I simply turned off the dorm light and ignored it. In my past life, I was entangled with him for half a lifetime, only to meet a pitiful and wretched end. This time, I just want to sever all ties with him as quickly as possible and have nothing more to do with him. 6. Early the next morning, I was getting ready for work. The moment I opened the door, a figure tumbled out. Song Changming had been sitting outside the door all night. Seeing me come out, he scrambled to his feet and ran a hand through the hair on either side of his head. You're up, Tang Tang. Are you hungry? I'll go get you something to eat. Perhaps he stood up too quickly, for Song Changming swayed unsteadily and had to brace himself against the wall to keep his balance. Yet, I felt not the slightest bit moved. I suppose the part of my heart capable of being moved had already hardened in a past life. Save your breath. My mind is made up and won't be changed. You'd be better off thinking about how you and Zhao Songan will manage once we're divorced. As I walked down from the dormitory building and arrived at the entrance of the unit, I spotted Zhao Songan already waiting not far away. She saw Song Changming too and came jogging over. Brother Changming, why didn't you answer my calls? You said you'd discuss the case with me. Did you and Sister Jitong argue because of me? Chapter 3. As she spoke, she suddenly bowed deeply in front of me to apologize. I'm so sorry, Sister Jitong. This is all my fault. Please don't argue because of me. The only reason I sought out Brother Changming this time was in the simple hope that he could help me with my lawsuit. The 2 nights he stayed at my place, we were only discussing the legal case. You should trust Brother Changming. You two have such a strong bond. You'll definitely have a lovely baby in the future. Please don't be angry with him because of me. That pitiful, innocent look on her face was a complete act. She was scheming up a storm. So she knows Song Changming and I have been married for 5 years without getting pregnant, and she's trying to rub it in. But Zhao Songyan has no idea I was pregnant, and that I've already terminated it. A sudden gleam lit up Song Changming's eyes. He hurriedly stepped in front of me and took my hand. His previously trembling voice now held a note of calm. That's right, Tang Tang, you're pregnant. Our baby is already 3 months along. You can't let our child be born without a father, can you? I know I was wrong this time. I swear, I'll make it up to you. I promise. Song Changming's words took Zhao Songyan completely by surprise. She couldn't help but change her expression, and a flicker of resentment showed in her eyes as she looked at me. I didn't want to get tangled up with her any further, nor did I want to engage. He left without a word, heading straight for the office. I had no idea what explanation Song Changming was referring to, nor had I ever cared to find out. For the next few days, I didn't catch a single glimpse of Song Changming. It wasn't until a week later that I finally saw him appear, looking weary from his travels. Tang Tang, my mom made dinner tonight. She wants us to come over. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. This never happened in my past life. Logically, Mrs. Song shouldn't be here, let alone inviting me for dinner. In my past life, Song's mother never liked me. She said I couldn't bear children and was constantly finding fault with me, always singling me out. Later, when I gave birth to a daughter, she called her a financial burden and subjected me to daily sarcasm and scorn. My mother wasn't feeling well a week ago. I'd been over there these past few days to bring her to live with us. Alright, I'll come back today. After much thought, I finally decided to accept the invitation to go back for dinner. This time, with Mrs. Song also present, I could make a clean break of it. Seeing that I had agreed, Song Changming was naturally overjoyed. Then I'll pick you up right after you finish work. Before I could even refuse, Song Changming hurriedly left. Soon, it was time to leave work. This time, he didn't stand me up. Instead, he showed up in my office parking lot very early. Some colleagues who knew Song Changming saw him and started sending me private messages. Your husband is so good to you, coming to the parking lot so early to pick you up. I frowned and had no choice but to head to the parking lot early. Let's go. He had been waiting by the passenger seat. Upon seeing me, he quickly opened the door and made an inviting gesture, as if presenting a treasure, but I calmly opened the rear door, got in, and said to Song Changming, who was left standing there in surprise, I thought we were going to eat. Aren't we leaving? He snapped out of it, pursed his lips, and hurried over to the driver's seat to start the car. 7. The whole way there, Song Changming kept trying to strike up a conversation with me. Whether intentionally or not, he asked how my work was going lately, then went on to share some interesting cases he had recently encountered or heard about. That used to be my favorite part of our conversations, the topic we both enjoyed the most, but now I realize it wasn't about the topic itself, it was about the person. When someone is no longer important to you, every word they say just becomes noise. I leaned back in the seat with my eyes closed, saying nothing. Song Changming finally seemed to realize I didn't want to engage with him, and gradually fell silent as well. Back at the apartment complex, even before I pushed the door open, I could hear a familiar woman's voice from inside. In the living room, Mrs. Song and Zhao Songyan were sitting on the sofa, chatting and laughing. Song's mother didn't say a word when she saw me. Instead, Zhao Songyan eagerly stepped forward, acting like the lady of the house as she tried to take the bag from my hand. You're back, Sister Jitong. You must be tired after a whole day's work. Let me take your bag, I'll hang it up for you. I moved my hand away from hers. No need to trouble yourself, I'll put it away. Once inside, I chose to sit on a chair in the corner, keeping my distance from the sofa where Mrs. Song and Zhao Songyan were seated. Song Changming frowned the moment he stepped through the door and, quite uncharacteristically, addressed the question to everyone present. Songyan, what are you doing here? Today is a family dinner. Before he could finish, Mrs. Song cut him off sharply. Songin came to see me. She knows this old woman isn't well and came to check on me. Not like some people. I've been here for days, and she hasn't even shown her face. Anyone would think the Song family has no daughter-in-law. I'm afraid even when this old woman dies, that person still won't show up. Mom, what kind of nonsense are you saying? Song Changming hurriedly cut off his mother's words, while cautiously glancing in my direction. I was so angry I just had to laugh. I was planning to wait until after dinner to have a proper talk, so we could all part on good terms. But given how things are going, I guess we don't need to wait for dinner. If you think she's so wonderful, why don't you have your son marry her? I bet she's just waiting for that. She'd be over the moon to know her future mother-in-law is such a big supporter. Anyway, your son and I were already planning to. Tang tang. Song Changming suddenly let out a hysterical roar. His eyes were red as he grabbed my hands, his face a mask of panic and dread. Dinner's ready, let's eat, everyone. Enough talking, that's enough. With that, he took Mrs. Song by the arm and led her into the kitchen, leaving Zhao Songin and me alone in the living room. With just the two of us, Zhao Songin dropped the act. Ji Tang, if you're leaving, then just leave. Make it clean and quick. Stop stringing Changming along with all this hesitation. Let me make this clear. Changming and I are meant to be a country bumpkin like you could never compare. It's true, my humble background is the very thing Mrs. Song dislikes most about me. I nodded in understanding, having already guessed the reason why Zhao Songin was with Mrs. Song today. Just then, Song Changming came out carrying the dishes and asked me with a smile, "What's everyone chatting about? Come and eat. Zhao Songin wants you to divorce me quickly. She's waiting to marry you and told me not to be so shameless as to cling to my position." This sentence threw everyone into a panic. Zhao Songin's face changed. She abruptly stood up, and then put on an innocent, delicate act. "Jitong, how could you just make things up like that? I never said any of that." I waved my phone and spoke with a meaningful tone. "I recorded it just now. Would you like me to play it back for you?" This time, not only Zhao Songin, but even Song Changming was stunned. She didn't dare risk whether I had actually recorded her, so in the end, she chose to remain silent. In the end, that meal never happened. When Mrs. Song came out, I got straight to the point. "Song Changming and I are getting a divorce. I've already signed the divorce papers. It would be best if you could get him to sign them quickly, otherwise, we'll have to take it to court." Mother Song's face lit up with unmistakable joy. She turned to Song Changming, her eyes wide with pleasant surprise as she asked him, "Is it really true, son?" Song Changming, however, showed no such delight. He stepped forward and grabbed my hand, his voice a desperate, pleading cry. "Tang Tang, I won't agree to a divorce. What will happen to our child if we split up? A child can't be raised properly in a single-parent home. A child needs a father. I've had this planned for a while." She took the abortion report from her bag and threw it at Song Changming. 8. The baby is gone. You can be with Zhao Songin without a care in the world. Nothing stands in your way now. The very week he brought his mother over, I had already gotten rid of the baby. Song Changming's hands trembled as he finished reading the abortion report, his bloodshot eyes welling up with tears. "Ji Tang, how could you be so heartless? This was our child. What right did you have to abort him?" I let out a cold laugh before answering. "Then tell me, why should I have him? So he can be born into a family without a father's love." "How can you say there's no father's love? I love him. I've always loved my child, but I don't want to have a baby for you anymore." His furious expression suddenly froze, as if a torrent of rage was trapped in his chest, leaving him utterly speechless. Having just read the miscarriage report, Mother Song collapsed to the floor, wailing with a heartrending grief. "You vicious woman, how dare you get rid of my precious grandson? Give me back my grandson." She was screaming while trying to grab at my clothes. I calmly pushed Mother Song away. "Isn't this exactly what you've always wanted? Once I divorce Changming, you can finally arrange a suitable daughter-in-law for him." Sure enough, my words hit Mother Song right where it hurt. She shot me a venomous glare before turning to Song Changming and saying, "Son, just divorce her. She's just damaged goods. Does she really think she can find anyone better after leaving you? No one will ever want her for the rest of her life. Get a divorce right away. It's perfect. Songin has liked you for a long time and has been waiting for you. You can marry her as soon as the divorce is final." The excitement in Zhao Songin's eyes, who had been waiting nearby, was impossible to hide. She pretended to be bashful as she stood behind Mrs. Song. "Auntie, what are you talking about?" Now that everything was clear, I smiled, picked up my bag, and got ready to leave. Well, I wish you smooth sailing from here on out. I had just stepped out of the Song residence and gotten into the elevator. To my surprise, Song Changming came rushing out. He braced one hand against the elevator door and asked me, his voice thick with resentment, Chapter 4, why, Ji Tang? Why would you do that? That was your child too. I tilted my head and thought for a long time. The thought of my child from a past life receiving not a shred of affection from the moment they were born still causes a dull ache in my heart. Mother Song disliked girls, always considering them a financial burden, and her words were laced with contempt. Song Changming was too busy being inseparable from Zhao Songyan, caught up in their passionate affair, and shirked every bit of his responsibility as a father, and I, lost in my own melancholy, also neglected to give the child any care. This is all my fault, because I don't want my child to be born into the wrong family. I wrenched Song Changming's hand away. To the sound of his agonized cries, I left the residential compound. It was 3 days later before I saw him again. He had already signed the divorce papers and agreed to go collect the divorce certificate. On the way to the Civil Affairs Bureau, Song Changming said to me with a bitter smile, Tang Tang, I really don't want to divorce you. In fact, I was already prepared to cut ties with Zhao Songyan. I was going to hand her case over to someone else at the firm. I nodded dismissively. At this point, there's no use in saying any of this now. After leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, Song Changming's back suddenly seemed to give way, bending considerably, just before we parted. He suddenly called out to me, Tang Tang, my mom has been threatening to kill herself these past few days. I had no choice but to. You don't need to tell me any of this. I shook the divorce certificate in my hand. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. You go your way, and I'll go mine. Song Changming, I wish you every success in becoming a renowned lawyer in the future. After my divorce from Song Changming, I poured all my energy into my work. Not long after, it was time for Zhao Songyan's case to go to trial. Unfortunately, without my help this time, Song Changming's failure was, unsurprisingly, a foregone conclusion. Far from becoming famous, he instead became notorious, with people even questioning how he managed to pass his certification exam. I next heard news about Song Changming when I was in the hospital. She had undergone an abortion procedure and was going for regular checkups to recover. Song Changming seemed to have lost his mind. He looked utterly haggard, his face sunken and his expression vacant. He sat on the hospital bed, muttering something incessantly. Suddenly, upon seeing me, he threw himself at my feet and clutched at my pant leg. Why didn't you tell me in this lifetime? Why isn't this loophole in the law this time around? I was stunned for a couple of seconds. Then, with a laugh, I kicked him away. I didn't know if he had found out about our past life, but in this life, I patched that vulnerability the moment I had the chance. If I had stuck to my old ways, I would have been utterly defeated. After that day, I heard a piece of gossip from a colleague. Under the relentless blows, Song Changming completely lost his mind. Naturally, Zhao Songyan had no intention of marrying a madman, so she prepared to run away. Unfortunately, as luck would have it, she was discovered by Song's mother. She was then directly tied to Song Changming's bed and drugged. The drugged and deranged Song Changming nearly killed Zhao Songyan. In the end, he died in his bed. After the situation escalated, Song's mother was taken away for questioning. Zhao Songyan was covered in scratches and completely disfigured. I can't help but feel grateful for my departure in this lifetime. I'm done with all this misery. The end. Story 2. I am the villain's white moonlight wife who died young. On the 10th year after death, I was revived by the system. It wants me to redeem the now corrupted him, but I've lost all my memories, so when I spotted that villain from afar, before I could even get close, I was immediately driven away by his subordinates. As I was thrown to the ground in disgrace, several lines of bullet comments suddenly appeared before my eyes. Here we go again. I've lost count of how many have come to save the villain by now. For so many years, the system has arranged countless substitute strategists to stabilize the villain, fearing he might destroy this world. Some resembled the villain's deceased wife in appearance, some matched her personality, and there were even those who came fully prepared with all of her memories, but without exception, they all failed. How many days can such an ordinary one like this last? 1. When the system brought me through, the villain who affects the stability of the entire world line, already 34 years old, with a son around 10 years of age, and I awoke from my slumber, know nothing, remember nothing, I only know my name is Sun Nua, and I'm 23 years old. This was just told to me by the system. Besides that, it repeatedly warned me about how dangerous that villain is. Don't let me be like those past strategists, just entered this world, and already lost my life. The system said that villain is called Qin Jinnan, standing at the pinnacle of wealth and power in this world. He's cruel and ruthless, like a ferocious beast. The only shred of conscience left was probably reserved for his still young son. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, lost in thought. I just whispered softly, I don't think I have anything special that would impress that villain. The system watched me in silence. After a long pause, he said meaningfully, you're the last chance. If even you can't. His words trailed off there. Then he said firmly, no, you must succeed, too. The system's countless warnings weren't wrong, because I had just transmigrated into this world, and had just managed to catch a distant glimpse of Qin Jinnan, was immediately noticed by the several burly black-suited bodyguards following him. Qin Jinnan was dressed entirely in black, with an overcoat draped over his shoulders. He stood at the school gate, waiting for his son to finish classes. He didn't even glance in my direction. I gazed at his sharply chiseled profile, half veiled in coldness. An uncontrollable peculiar emotion sprouted from the depths of my heart. This emotion made one sorrowful to the point of tears. I found myself inexplicably frozen in place, didn't even notice his bodyguard had approached, when thrown heavily against the wall. Excruciating pain radiated from every part of my body. His bodyguard had a menacing look. Before leaving, he threw a threat at me. Don't look at people you shouldn't. He gave me a cold glance as I lay in a pathetic heap on the ground. He said, if there's a next time, it won't be this simple. 3. Snow suddenly began to fall from the sky at that moment. I hugged my injured arm and leaned against the corner of the wall. From a distance, Qin Jinnan had already picked up his son. Even after seeing his son, not a trace of a smile appeared on his face. He simply put out the cigarette in his hand, lowered his gaze, and took his son's hand. The two of them turned and got into the car. Perhaps my gaze was too intense. Just before boarding, the boy suddenly turned his head and looked straight at me. I was covered in a mixture of blood and snow. What a sorry sight, yet subconsciously, he still flashed a gentle smile at that exceptionally handsome boy. The boy's gaze was as indifferent as his father's, calmly sizing me up. He only glanced at me once. The bodyguard had already turned sideways to open the car door. The door slowly closed before my eyes as the car drove away without looking back. 4. It felt like my heart suddenly missed a beat. A profound sense of weightlessness washed over me. I haven't had time to ponder the origin of this strange emotion of mine. Suddenly, several lines of white text appeared before my eyes. Those words streamed densely and rapidly across my vision. Yet another new strategist has appeared. Over the past decade, I've lost count of how many dozens or hundreds this makes. The system is truly terrified of the villainous brother, fearing he might destroy the entire world in a fit of displeasure. Hence it tries every possible means to place people by his side, but the villainous brother only loves his deceased wife. Over the years, the system has sent countless replacement strategists to the villain's side. Some resembled the villain's deceased wife in appearance, some matched her personality, and there were even those who came fully prepared with all of her memories. 5. I stared at the barrage of comments flashing rapidly before my eyes. I lightly furrowed my brows, forgetting even to blink. The so-called villain brother they mentioned must be Qin Jinnan, the one threatening the stability of this entire world, and those failed strategists from the past are probably the reason why the system repeatedly warned me about Qin Jinnan's danger. The system likely exhausted all possible methods, so why does he think someone as mediocre as me could complete the mission and keep Qin Jinnan under control? As I thought this, the text before me gradually shifted the topic to me. But to be honest, what's kept the villain brother in check all these years was never some substitute or strategist. It must be the son left to him by his deceased wife. His late wife departed without a trace, leaving only this son behind. This is also the villain's sole remaining connection to the entire world now. Otherwise, given the villain's madness in those early years, he might have already destroyed the world and himself, joining his deceased wife in death. That's why every single strategist failed without exception. After all, the deceased wife was the antagonist's white moonlight. She was the only pure land in his heart. The antagonist won't allow anyone to tarnish her by impersonating her face and identity. That's why those imposters died more miserably one after another. What about this one right here? This utterly ordinary, unprepared, completely unremarkable strategist? How many days can she even last? They even started placing bets. I bet on her next meeting with the villain guy. That will be her death day. I'll take that bet, then I'll follow the bet. Someone else sent a laughing emoji. No, she fell pretty hard just now. Heavy snow started falling again. Whether she can survive this ordeal remains unknown. 6. I lowered my eyes, ignoring the dense text mocking me, only staring at my own bloody wounds. But contrary to everyone's expectations, getting involved with Qin Jinnan again, it was actually his son who came looking for me. I don't know how he found me. All I know is, when I opened the door of my cheap motel room this morning, I saw him standing alone at my doorstep with his backpack, looking at his indifferent face that bore such a striking resemblance to his father's. I gently paused my steps. He slightly raised his head, his gaze fixed straight on my face. "Who are you?" he asked me in a low voice. How strange. He came to my door, but his first question was asking who I was. "My name is Sun Nua." I answered his question earnestly nonetheless. The moment my words fell, his brow furrowed deeply. 7. The white text before his eyes showed no sign of stopping. The moment I finished speaking, they burst into synchronized mockery. Has the system completely given up? Looked for someone with a similar appearance, looked for someone with a similar personality. This is the first time I've so blatantly brought a strategist with the exact same name into the world. The system really isn't afraid of the villain getting angry and throwing a fit. It's practically delivering the strategist right to the antagonist's doorstep, saying, "You want Sunua? Well, I brought Sunua back to you." Unlike those lively, bustling narratives, the boy before me showed not a trace of a smile on his face. He simply stated calmly, "My name is Sun Yen." As he finished speaking, his gaze fixed more intently on me. It even seemed like he was observing, waiting for my reaction. "Sun Nua, Sun Yen. His name is strikingly similar to mine." Combine the content revealed by those white texts. Perhaps Qin Jinnan's deceased wife was named Sun Nua. 8. But in my mind, there is only blankness. I couldn't give Sun Yen any reaction she desired. His burning gaze fixed on me gradually cooled. Someone came running hurriedly from the direction of the elevator. The middle-aged man in a suit stood half a head taller than Sun Yen, yet he stopped before Sun Yen, bending at the waist with his head lowered, with a sincere tone. "Young master, the car is waiting downstairs, you'll be late for class." Sun Yen gently lowered her dark eyelashes, as if disappointed, then he turned around neatly and was about to leave, but as he turned, his movements hesitated for a moment, his brows lightly furrowed again. He looked at the glass window across the hallway and said, "You should go get your injuries treated." Following his gaze, I looked at the rough gauze wrapped around my arm and right leg in the mirror. After transmigrating, the system didn't give me any golden fingers. The little money I have left can barely cover food and shelter. There's absolutely no way I can afford hospital treatment. Sun Yen has already left. My gaze swept across the glass window, looking at the blurred reflection of my own face upon it. 9. There's a mottled scar on my right cheek. The system claims I died in a fire 10 years ago. The system's energy is supplied by the world, but the villain Qin Jinnan is vengeful to the extreme. His wife died in an accident linked to the male and female protagonists. Without distinguishing right from wrong, he took revenge on everyone involved in that accident, including the male and female protagonists, the chosen ones of Heaven's will, who had already died 5 years ago. After the protagonists' deaths, the world fell into the grasp of the antagonist Qin Jinnan. Even the system itself was barely surviving. Its energy is always insufficient, so it can only restore my body to about 80% of its original state. My body is relatively healthy, but there are still various unhealed burns of different sizes all over my body. I gazed at the unfamiliar face in the mirror. It was truly an ordinary, even ugly face. To choose me as the strategist for such a villain, I could see no hope whatsoever. No wonder those white words were filled with mockery towards me. 10. But whether there's hope or not, I still have to conquer Qin Jinnan. This is the purpose of the system reviving me. It was also the only way I could keep living. But to conquer Qin Jinnan, I had to first solve my own imminent survival problem. I tried every means possible at the bookstore downstairs from Qin Jinnan's company, found a job as a librarian, worked the night shift until midnight. The lights in the building across the street were still blazing. I sat on the steps outside the bookstore, opening a boxed meal that had already gone cold. At 12:07, Qin Jinnan's black Bentley glided past my eyes. The Bentley's tinted windows blocked all my view. I knew Qin Jinnan was sitting inside that car, because those white text fragments before my eyes were buzzing with discussion. They seemed to have an extra pair of eyes compared to me, able to see Qin Jinnan inside through the car window, and use this as an opportunity to direct their sarcastic remarks at me. the system has completely given up. And it seems this lady has too. Other transmigrators who enter this world try every possible way to get close to the villain, whether to make their presence known or find a breakthrough point. She's doing just fine, even leisurely looking for a job and living her own life. Were you scared by the villain's bodyguards when you first met? So I'm just supposed to watch her organize bookshelves every day. If you're this useless, you shouldn't have agreed to take on this system's conquest mission in the first place. I lowered my eyes, no longer looking at those emotionally charged words. Only then did I notice a stray dog wagging its tail, eagerly approaching me. I gave it the only 2 pieces of meat from my lunchbox. Together with it, we shared this boxed meal under the night sky. 11. Worked at the bookstore for nearly a month. When the wounds on my body had mostly healed, only then did I unexpectedly see Qin Jinnan again. At 11 p.m., the bookstore owner asked me to deliver a stack of packaged books to the building across the street. After passing through the security guard's rigorous checks and interrogations, I finally stepped into that building for the first time. After handing the book to the client, I prepared to leave. The office building was quiet at night, with most people already off work, so while waiting for the elevator, I faintly heard subtle movements coming from the end of the hallway. It sounded like the noise someone makes when in extreme pain. The elevator took forever to arrive. I turned my head and looked toward the end of the corridor. The words before me screamed at me to mind my own business. They even gave me advice, suggesting I take this opportunity to go down to the underground parking lot, to lie in wait for Qin Jinnan getting off work. But I could hear that faint, pained, hoarse voice, standing silently in place for a long while. He finally turned and walked toward the end of the corridor. 12. But no one could have anticipated, curled up at the stairwell of the emergency exit, sitting under the pale fluorescent light, was Qin Jinnan. He wore a pure black shirt and dress pants, his shoulders broad and back straight, yet it was an uncommonly fragile appearance. As I opened the emergency exit door, he had already turned his head with alertness. Beads of sweat from intense pain dotted his temples. But the gaze he fixed upon me was filled entirely with indifference and wariness. I seemed to have stumbled upon a scene I shouldn't have seen. My footsteps froze on the spot, yet under Qin Jinnan's gaze, I could only muster the courage to ask, "Should I call a doctor for you?" Qin Jinnan continued staring coldly at me without uttering a word. I had to raise my hand to press the white mask tighter against my face. Because of the scars on my face, I'm afraid of frightening customers and children. In daily life when I'm outside, I always wear a white face covering mask. His gaze carried immense pressure. I already wanted to step back and leave, but seeing the veins bulging at his temples from the intense pain, looking at his pale, thin lips, for some inexplicable reason, a sense of compassion welled up inside me, so I still took a step forward and pulled out the painkillers from my pocket. I never went to a proper hospital to see a doctor for the injuries from some time ago. When the pain became unbearable, I relied on chewing painkillers to get through it. The painkillers I always carry in my bag actually came in handy at this moment. 13. Under Qin Jinnan's gaze, I placed a pill by his side. As I turned to leave, he unexpectedly grabbed my wrist. His palm was icy cold, sending chills down my spine. I had no choice but to lower my gaze to look at him. We stood so close that our eyes met. "Who are you?" he finally rasped out. The lighting wasn't bright enough, yet I still caught a fleeting glimmer of light in his dark pupils. His movements were too fast. Completely disregarding whether I agreed or not, he had already casually hooked off the mask hanging on my face. Qin Jinnan's pupils were pitch black, reflecting the vivid scar on my face. Too close, so I saw his eyes tremble slightly. My face is still too frightening. I raised my hand to hook the mask back on. Saw his palm seem to suddenly lose strength. Dangling a silver necklace was just tightly clenched in his icy palm. The necklace was adorned with a silver watch face. At the center of the watch face, there was faintly the image of a smiling girl's face. I averted my gaze and didn't look any further, left the pills behind and walked away. This time, Qin Jinnan didn't stop me. Before leaving, I turned back for one last look at the doorway. Qin Jinnan remained seated in the same spot. He was clad in solemn black, yet entirely despondent. 14. Those white words are criticizing me again. They call me foolish, saying I don't get it, I give up. She's honestly the most useless protagonist I've ever encountered. She just stumbled upon incredible luck with that perfect opportunity, and she didn't even know how to seize it. She just left like that. Shouldn't we stay there and comfort the antagonist a bit? After finally meeting face to face in a private setting, she just left like that. What on earth is she doing? Some of those writings go even further. Still fanning the flames, I thought I should be more direct, throw myself into Qin Jinnan's arms, and use the most vulgar means to seduce him. Anyway, I'm doomed. Someone like me could never complete the conquest mission anyway. They can't wait for me to anger Qin Jinnan sooner and meet my demise. They don't want to see another strategist like me anymore. I died, naturally. A new, capable strategist will take my place. 15. The bookstore owner signed a long-term contract with the client in the building across the street. I often volunteered to run errands there. Occasionally, I could catch a glimpse of Qin Jinnan's figure from afar. He always wore black, with not a trace of any other color on him. The only exception was the occasional glimpse of a white shirt collar at his neck. His steps were always hurried, followed by a crowd of suit-clad, bowing subordinates. What he showed to others was his cold and unapproachable demeanor. Not a trace remained of that night's pallor and vulnerability. Sometimes when passing by the office area, I overhear employees gossiping in the break room. They say in the terrifying boss's office, there isn't a single vibrant color to be seen, not even a fresh flower can be found. The entire decor is oppressive shades of gray and black. It was no secret in the company that Qin Jinnan's wife had passed away early. Perhaps because his son often appeared at the company, or perhaps because of that plain ring on his finger, never once taken off, so they even began to speculate, is Qin Jinnan, living like an ascetic, keeping vigil for his deceased wife, carrying a heavy stack of books? I silently walked through the glamorous crowd with my head down. I suddenly began to question whether agreeing to pursue Qin Jinnan was the right or wrong decision. 16. It's been over 2 months since I transmigrated into this world. From what I've learned, Qin Jinnan was indeed deeply devoted to his deceased wife. No wonder so many suitors before me have failed in their attempts. My progress in this conquest seems hopeless. Those white characters probably saw through my incompetence. Now they hardly pay any attention to me or scold me. My very existence seems to be tarnishing the love between Qin Jinnan and his deceased wife. I have no past. And it seems I have no future either. Should I really continue this seemingly hopeless pursuit? I lowered my head, lost in deep thought. The book I was holding was too thick, blocking part of my view. Not paying attention to the book's edge, I bumped into a beautiful woman wearing a white suit dress and holding coffee. Most of the coffee spilled onto the book, while the rest splashed onto the woman's snow-white blouse. I kept my head down, busily wiping the books while apologizing to the woman in front of me. The woman's voice turned shrill as she frowned and grabbed my arm. Who let you in here? I explained that I was from the bookstore downstairs. The woman sneered. I've never heard of any possible collaboration between our company and some shabby little bookstore. 17. More and more people turned their gaze towards us. Still bowing my head, I kept apologizing to the woman, saying, your clothes, I'll wash them for you. Or I'll buy you a new one. Can you even afford to? The woman looked at me disdainfully. Her nails were sharp, easily pulling at my hair and yanking off my mask. The mask fell off, completely revealing my face. At that moment, I heard someone gasp behind me. You, the beautiful woman in front of me froze mid-sentence. I closed my eyes briefly, raising my hand to adjust the mask, hiding the awkward emotions. I'm sorry. I bowed my head and apologized to her again. I'll accept whatever way you want to handle this matter. In the silence of the room, the elevator door suddenly emitted a crisp beep sound. At this moment, the doors automatically slid open on both sides as someone stepped out of the elevator cabin. A tall figure cast its shadow at my feet. 18. It's the subscription contract I signed with their bookstore. Qin Jinnan's voice was low and cool, devoid of any human warmth. Yet at the moment the words fell, it bowed the heads of everyone present. What came to its senses before I did, were those white characters, line after dense line, crowding my vision. But this time, the content of those words was quite simple and uniform, nothing but question marks, filling the entire screen. Which episode did I miss? I was just not speaking, not dead. Can someone tell me what's going on now? Dylan bro, how did you suddenly appear? No way, I've been watching this lady every day. What else could she possibly be doing that I don't know about? When I looked up in a daze, Qin Jinnan's black leather shoes had already stopped right by my feet. A cold sensation touched my wrist. It was Qin Jinnan suddenly grabbing hold of me. He circled my wrist with a force that brooked no resistance. I didn't dare, nor could I break free from Qin Jinnan's grasp. As I raised my hand, the stack of books I was holding scattered noisily across the floor. I slowly turned my head and found myself lost in Qin Jinnan's pitch-black eyes. He slightly lowered his head. staring straight into my eyes with an intense, profound gaze, but just as I tried to discern the emotions in his eyes, he subtly turned his head away without a trace. Same as always, no improvement at all, he said about me. Uttering such words, the hand gripping my wrist showed not the slightest sign of loosening. 19. With Qin Jinnan's appearance, the course of events instantly changed. The system and those texts had described Qin Jinnan's terror to me countless times. But this was the first time I witnessed Qin Jinnan's cruelty and tyranny with my own eyes. He didn't listen to a single word of the woman's explanation. With a faint raise of his hand, he summoned the bodyguards. The woman was dragged out of the floor. No one dared to say no, nor even lift their heads to glance at us. The Qin Jinnan before me was dangerous and inscrutable. I watched helplessly as that woman disappeared from this floor, raising my head slightly. I saw Qin Jinnan curl his lips into an inexplicable smile. That smile of his was directed at me. His cool fingertips gently caressed my wrist. At the same time, he lowered his head and said to me, "I just got you out of that awkward situation." He asked me leisurely, "How are you going to thank me?" 20. As soon as Qin Jinnan spoke, those white characters once again flooded my vision with uniform question marks. I'd rather believe the villainous brother was possessed than accept he genuinely fell for this woman. Wait, you rejected the beautiful ones, the emotionally intelligent ones, even the one who looked identical to your late wife, and now you're telling me she's special. Why, the key point is, this lady has been here for so long, yet hasn't seriously done a single thing to actively pursue the targets, so why exactly is that? I'm even more confused than those indignant words. Don't understand the sudden change in Qin Jinnan's attitude towards me, don't understand his inexplicable words, don't understand his sudden appearance, nor do I understand that smile on his face now. Perhaps it had been too long since he last smiled, for the curve at the corner of his lips looked particularly stiff, as if he had to carefully angle his reflection in the mirror before pulling up the corners of his mouth, until he led me into the elevator, stepping onto the 36th floor. I didn't give Qin Jinnan any other reaction. 21. Qin Jinnan's office occupies the southeast corner, with the entire floor opened up, facing the river on two sides. The view is exceptionally clear and expansive, but just as the rumors say, his office is draped in dark tones, extremely oppressive. I was pulled by Qin Jinnan to sit on the black leather sofa indoors, watching him take out a damp towel, squat in front of me, and carefully wipe away the coffee stains on my hands, from beginning to end. I neither had nor dared to refuse Qin Jinnan. I lowered my eyes to look at him, his sharp, piercing eyebrows pressed down slightly, unexpectedly revealing a gentle curve. He held a towel, wiping my hand finger by finger with his thumb. I looked at Qin Jinnan before me and murmured softly, "Will you?" He tilted his head to look at me and let out a questioning hum. I swallowed hard, suppressing my fearful heartbeat. I asked him, "What will you do to her?" 22. Qin Jinnan has a notorious reputation. He acts without any rhyme or reason. It was me who bumped into that beautiful woman first. If she suffers because of this, my conscience won't get over this hurdle, but I'm still afraid of Qin Jinnan, so when I voiced the question, I instinctively clenched my fingers. My fingers were gently pried open as Qin Jinnan suddenly let out a chuckle. "What are you thinking about?" He reached up and ruffled my hair. He said, "Of course I only fired her." The dense white text before my eyes was filled entirely with exclamations and questions. It's already unreadable, amusing. It's been almost 10 years, and this is the first time I've known the villain brother can smile. Just fired, no matter how I hear it, I just can't believe it. The last person dragged away like this by bodyguards was this sister. That time, even without the villain brother's orders, this sister was beaten half to death. The villain actually brought someone into his private territory. Is he really interested in her? I honestly can't see what's so special about this woman. Is this suddenly turning into a domineering CEO falling for an ordinary ugly duckling? 23. Who told you something? Qin Jinnan looked at me. That inexplicable smile on his face seemed to never fade away. He was still holding my hand and said, "You seem to have some misunderstanding about me." His words were too suggestive. It instantly reminded me of the system's repeated warnings before I transmigrated here. I remained silent, just shaking my head slightly. Qin Jinnan acted as if proving his innocence. He said in front of me, "I don't have a hobby of intentionally hurting people," he said. "It's just that my employee was really impolite, so I fired her." I remembered when I first arrived, just because I glanced at him a little too long, I was thrown into the corner by his bodyguard. remained silent without making a sound. Qin Jinnan had already stood up. He draped his black overcoat over my shoulders. "Come with me to a place," Qin Jinnan said. 24. Qin Jinnan actually took me to a private hospital. Perhaps he had someone clear the place in advance. The entire hospital floor had no other patients, only a group of doctors on standby, when Qin Jinnan sent me for a full-body checkup. Only then did I suddenly realize it had been a long time since I'd seen the original group of bodyguards who threw me against the wall by his side. By the time I finished all the examinations, the sky had turned completely dark. Qin Jinnan was exceptionally patient. He wore just a black shirt, with his overcoat draped over his arm, waiting for me outside the door. When the doctor approached us, Qin Jinnan merely lowered his eyes and rolled up my sleeve. He asked the doctor, "Can these scars be removed?" I looked at my arm covered with layers of old and new scars. The doctor's gloved fingers lightly touched my arm. He pointed at several wounds on my arm. "These fresh wounds can be treated, but the old scars from adulthood." The doctor stopped speaking under Qin Jinnan's increasingly cold gaze, only daring to mumble, Perhaps we still need to discuss some treatment plans downstairs." 25. When we finally left the hospital, I noticed 2 doctors following behind us. Qin Jinnan held my hand, noticing my gaze. He calmly explained, "I've arranged for 2 doctors to care for your body at home." I turned my head to look at Qin Jinnan. Qin Jinnan said with complete naturalness, "Come home with me." He raised his hand and gently stroked my back, saying, "Let me take care of you." I swallowed with my dry throat and silently gazed at Qin Jinnan. I can't understand Qin Jinnan's actions. His progress is indeed too fast, so fast that I didn't even have time to react. 26. I thought so. And I voiced it out loud. "Why?" Qin Jinnan smiled. "I know the purpose of you coming to my side. Coming to this world." He slowly uttered a few words. "You're here to conquer me." My heart skipped a beat. Qin Jinnan indeed knows everything, as if the entire world is under his control. "Then why did you choose me?" "The words have been laid out. There's no point in hiding or covering up anymore," I said. "The system mentioned that dozens to hundreds of strategists have entered this world." Qin Jinnan's fingers gently caressed the back of my hand. "We have already stepped into the elevator." With just one glance from him, the assistant, bodyguards, and doctor following behind spontaneously took the elevator on the other side. The elevator doors closed, leaving only Qin Jinnan and me alone in the confined space. We were already close enough, yet he took another step forward, lowered his head slightly, and moved to kiss my eyelids. His gaze was exceptionally earnest, so earnest that it held only me. I turned my head away just a second before he got closer. This was the first time I rejected Qin Jinnan. 27. I thought it would anger Qin Jinnan, expecting his retaliation or punishment, but he didn't. He just naturally kissed the mask surface near my ear. I heard his low voice. "Promise," he said. "Because those strategists are just strategists, and you're just promise." Qin Jinnan uttered these 2 simple sentences. I was momentarily stunned. The text before my eyes was in complete chaos, dense and countless, a vast expanse of white. Holy crap. After all this cursing, turns out Sis was the actual white moonlight. No wonder the villain dude seemed like he was possessed. So this was the system's final trump card. What about those who previously criticized her for just lazing around after transmigrating? Is there a possibility that even without her doing anything, the villain would come to her on his own? And to top it off, she's the deceased white moonlight. The buffs are stacked to the max. No one knows what method the system used, but it held back for something big and resurrected her in one go. Authentic products are indeed different from counterfeits. Even with lost memories and a wounded face, the villain brother could still recognize her. Does anyone still dare to insult her now? Before, they criticized her for being indecisive. Now they praise her for having the kindness of a white moonlight, struggling to feed herself yet still stopping to feed a stray dog on the street. Before you were criticizing them for being inactive, now you're saying a white moonlight should have this gentle, unhurried personality, different from those goal-oriented conquerors. After mocking them relentlessly before, now that you know their identity, everyone's starting to kneel and apologize. 28. Promise. The moment Qin Jinnan solemnly uttered my name, countless fragments of light and shadow flashed through my mind, but when I came to my senses and tried to grasp them, there was nothing. My mind remains a blank void. All I know is, it turns out I was the one who made the promise. It turns out I was Sunua, Qin Jinnan's long-deceased wife. I gently raised my eyes, gazing at Qin Jinnan before me. I said, I can't remember anything, I know. Qin Jinan lowered his head, pressing his forehead lightly against mine. The elevator had already reached the underground level, its doors automatically opening. Qin Jinan swept me up in his arms, as my feet left the ground. I instinctively reached up to wrap my arms around his neck. I heard his voice say, "Let's go home first." 29. After I spoke openly, perhaps seeing I didn't resist, Qin Jinan had even fewer reservations. He directly carried me from the car back to that unfamiliar, imposing high-rise villa. Stepping through the villa's entrance, the interior lights automatically turned on. As you enter through the main gate, a massive oil painting comes into view. It depicts the face of a young girl. Qin Jinan followed my gaze, muttering softly, 10 years, it's been too long, so I learned some things to pass the time. The faint sound of piano from upstairs stopped at this moment. Someone pushed the door open and came out. It was Sun Yan. He looks exactly like his father, as if they were cast from the same mold. Even at home, he wears a uniform shirt and trousers, standing on the second floor, looking down at us. 30. I lightly tapped Qin Jinan's shoulder, wanting him to put me down. Qin Jinan didn't comply. He only carried me to the sofa in the main hall. He's already 10 years old, he can understand what's being said. Qin Jinan casually draped his coat aside. I've already made everything clear to him. It only took the time to say a couple of sentences. Sun Yan had already come downstairs. He stood before me, gazing at me from a step away. We both fell silent. I didn't know how to face the fact that he was my son. In the end, Sun Yan was the first to speak. Dad said the house was on fire. They lied to you, telling you I was still trapped inside, and you ran back to look for me. Sun Yan's words ended there. His tone was calm, his words clearly enunciated. As the words fell, tears welled up in his dark eyes. This time, watching Sun Yan's tears, as his words came forth, it was as if I was back in the sea of flames from 10 years ago. I vaguely recalled something. At that time, Sun Yan was still in swaddling clothes. Qin Jinan didn't seem to be at home. I rushed into the sea of flames to find him, to find my child. The raging fire and thick smoke burned so intensely I couldn't open my eyes, but I still didn't hesitate to head towards the second floor. A collapsed beam struck my back, the flames licked at my hair and face. I never truly walked out of that fire. 31. Family ties are a peculiar thing. Watching Sun Yan's tears, I couldn't help but cry too. Sun Yan took a step forward and gently leaned against my knee. He raised his hand and, under my gaze, softly removed my mask. He stared at the ugly scar on my face. His fingertips lightly touched it. "Mommy," he called out, looking up at me. My tears wouldn't stop. Bowed her head and embraced his slender back. Sun Yan, calm and steady, personally raised by his father. In my arms, he burst into loud, wailing sobs. Throughout the process, Qin Jinan remained seated by my side, keeping watch over me. "Look at me quietly and intently, until you hear my suppressed sobs." Only then did he raise his hand to pull Sun Yan away, saying, "Your mother needs to rest now." 32. At night, I sat by the headboard in the master bedroom flipping through Sun Yan's old photos. Qin Jinan raised him very well. From birth to now at 10 years old, there are documented photos every year. Qin Jinan came out of the bathroom. He directly lifted the blanket and sat beside me. I shrank my legs slightly. He had already raised his arm to embrace my waist and back, pulled me into his embrace. "Do you know when I confirmed it was really you?" I tilted my head to look at him. "At midnight on the 23rd last month, you were feeding a dog outside the bookstore," Qin Jinan said. "As the car drove past, I only caught a glimpse of your profile." For nearly 10 years I'd felt no emotional fluctuations, but in that instant, my heart raced so violently it nearly burst from my chest. Qin Jinan rubbed my hand. "But the system is restless. These past 10 years, I've made sure it suffers, while it constantly sets traps for me. I fear it's all a fleeting dream, or perhaps just a reflection in water. That's why I recognized you, but I didn't dare approach you, afraid that if I got closer, you'd disappear." Qin Jinan's arms were long and strong, encircling my waist. I leaned passively against his shoulder, glancing at him sideways. I whispered, "So, that night in the company's emergency stairwell, you did it on purpose." Qin Jinan didn't deny it at all, admitting it straightforwardly. "I knew it was you, but I was too afraid." Even someone like Qin Jinan could openly admit to being afraid. Over these 10 years, during countless long nights, I've had many dreams. In them, you felt real. But upon waking, there was nothing left. "I'm afraid this might just be another beautiful dream. That's why I observe you, follow you, even make you appear before me countless times. Only then do I dare reach out and grab hold of you. 33. That night I lay sideways on Qin Jinnan's bed. He lay beside me, holding me close against him. The moonlight was bright, seeping through the window cracks. Qin Jinnan held me as we gazed at the moon together. The stray dog you used to feed. I had someone take it home. It's kept outside the courtyard now. If you like, you can visit it tomorrow. Neither of us felt sleepy, so he was talking to me intermittently, muttering incessantly, as if trying to make up for 10 years' worth of unspoken words. He spoke of how he had raised Sun Yen. He talked about all those strategists the system had sent to his side over the years. He spoke of how much he had missed me all these years. He stroked my hair and said, "Don't rush to recover your memories. I'll slowly tell you everything you want to know." I turned gently and nestled into his embrace. "Why was I resurrected by the system?" I asked Qin Jinnan softly. "Did you make some kind of deal with it?" Qin Jinnan's gaze froze. 34. I've been pondering this question all along. Both Qin Jinnan and the system are aware of each other's existence. Perhaps they could even communicate in some way. The original male and female protagonists of this world died years ago. Yet the world continues to operate normally. The system was left barely functioning after Qin Jinnan's meddling. It should hate Qin Jinnan, yet they still chose to revive me. Then my revival could only be the inevitable outcome orchestrated by Qin Jinnan. I voiced my question aloud. Qin Jinnan paused briefly, then gently smoothed my bangs while chuckling softly. He gazed into my eyes and gently kissed the scar on my cheek. He whispered to me, "So clever, in the first 2 years after you left. After I killed the destined male and female leads, I discovered the operating rules of this world. The world's operation requires energy, which was previously supplied and maintained by the male and female leads. With the death of the male and female leads, the world should have descended into complete chaos, but I forced the system to emerge. The system revealed that thriving economic development and population growth are also the energy sources that sustain the world and its existence. So all these years, I've been expanding my business empire, aggressively developing across all industries. I supply energy to the system. I demanded to revive you." I blinked, gazing at Qin Jinnan's gentle face before me. The man before me was completely different from the ruthless deity described by the system. Their communication could never be as harmonious as Qin Jinnan claimed. The business empire he built over the past decade, vast enough to sustain the entire world and the system, could never have been achieved as effortlessly as he made it sound. So I asked aloud, "You're exploiting its weakness, threatening it?" Qin Jinnan held the back of my neck and chuckled. "Yes, I can provide the energy it needs to survive. And I can also completely destroy it. It's been accustomed to being superior. But now I'm forcing its hand, so naturally it resents me. That's why over the years, it's intermittently sent many smokescreens my way, those so-called strategists. Even this time, it didn't heal you." Qin Jinnan narrowed his eyes slightly, a dangerous glint flashing briefly within them. Qin Jinnan gently touched my wounds. "But this is my problem. I'll find a way to cure you. As for the system, I won't let it off either." Qin Jinnan unexpectedly spoke such words in front of me. Yet I no longer felt afraid, just lightly covered her lips and chuckled. "At noon, you were still claiming your innocence in front of me." Qin Jinnan also smiled. "I don't know how the system described me to you. I was afraid you might fear me." He let out a soft sigh. Gazing at me earnestly, he said, "Sunua, I will never hurt you. Don't be afraid of me." 35. That night, Qin Jinnan held me as I fell asleep. He seemed insecure, his arms tightly encircling my waist. Like clinging vines growing upon me, I was kept half awake by his pestering. I had many, many dreams. That night, for the first time, I clearly saw the chaotic contents of those dreams. I remembered those years when Qin Jinnan and I depended on each other for survival. I grew up with him in the orphanage. When I turned 12, the orphanage director attempted to molest me. Qin Jinnan plunged a sharp dagger deep into the director's thigh. He crippled the director by taking one of his legs, took me away from that dark place. 36. Those years, Qin Jinnan and I actually had a very hard time. We lived in a leaking basement, sharing the same bowl of rice. Survival is already a very difficult thing, so in those years, Qin Jinnan would do anything and use anyone. He just would never hurt me. He raised me and sent me to school. I brought up countless times that the tuition fees are too high, and that I could start working to earn money together with him, but Qin Jinnan would only hold me tighter with his scar-covered arms. He said no. That was the only no he ever said to me. the dream replayed the emotions I felt back then. It was all worry and oppression. My whole heart was hung on Qin Jinnan, fearful that he might sustain new injuries again, afraid he might not come home for another 10 days or half a month, afraid he might step into the abyss himself, yet kept it from me. Telling me nothing. The year I got into university, Qin Jinnan's career took a turning point. After years of lying low, he overthrew the group's leader in one move and took the top position. By that time, we were no longer short of money. During my college years, I had privately advised Qin Jinnan several times, say I'm already in college and will soon be able to work and earn money, say we don't need such a luxurious life, say I just want to spend the rest of my life peacefully with him. I don't want him to be trapped in the center of darkness. All men have the desire to expand their territory, but Qin Jinnan always respected my opinions the most, so in the year I graduated from university, he married me and promised to carve out a clean path for us, spend the rest of your life with me. But in those years, Qin Jinnan offended countless people. He let others go, but others wouldn't let him go. He married me. I was the living target. I died in a great fire. A conspiracy in which both the male and female leads were involved. 37. In the 2 years after my death, Qin Jinnan completely lost control. He indiscriminately took revenge on everyone involved in that accident. Then he broke through the world's restrictions, exposed the system hiding behind the scenes. Only then did we realize we were merely living in a story revolving around the male and female leads. Only then did I understand that the suffering we endured, the love we experienced, even my death, were nothing more than background settings for the male and female leads. Qin Jinnan discovered the truth of the world. Thus began the following 10 years. Moreover, it repeatedly warned about the dangers of that antagonist. My time 38. I awoke from my dream, tears at the corner of my eyes. I turned my face and saw Qin Jinnan beside me. He was keeping watch by my side, frowning slightly as he gazed at me. It seemed no more words could be spoken. I just turned my face away and buried it in his chest. Gently wrapped my arms around his back. Qin Jinnan, I whispered his name. The person I was holding trembled slightly. Even after a decade apart, our unspoken understanding remains as strong as ever. I softly called out. He already knew I'd regained all my memories. Qin Jinnan slowly raised his arms and embraced me in return. He applied pressure slowly, as if trying to meld me into his very being. Promise. He whispered by my ear. I've missed you so much. Promise. The response, a decade overdue, finally arrived. I leaned against his chest and whispered, I'm here. Story 2. The junior schoolmate drew the truth or dare challenge and took the initiative to kiss my boyfriend, Duan Xiao. I broke up with him in public, but he just thought I was being petulant. Don't be such a spoilsport. If it were you kissing someone else for the game, I wouldn't care at all. Duan Xiao just believed that a good girl like me wouldn't do anything out of line. In the next round, his brother, Fu Xizhou, the heartthrob of the finance department, also drew a truth or dare challenge. Take a girl to spend the night together. He slowly reached out his hand towards me and smiled with a curve of his lips. Do you want to give it a try with me tonight? Finally, I placed my hand in his palm and agreed. That night, Duan Xiao called me until my phone was about to explode. 01. The content of Xinying's truth or dare challenge was: please choose any boy present and kiss him for 3 minutes. The next second, her eyes landed directly on Duan Xiao beside me. Everyone looked over along her line of sight. Duan Xiao just lowered his eyes and played with my palm, as if he couldn't feel that scorching gaze. Xining asked me timidly, Senior, can I borrow Senior Duan for 3 minutes? The air was so quiet that it seemed as if everyone had softened their breathing, nervously and expectantly watching this showdown. I really didn't understand. There are so many single boys here, why don't you ask someone else? She was speechless, biting her lower lip and showing an embarrassed look, but she still moved to the other side of the booth to ask other men. They all refused one by one until the third boy. I'm okay with it. The boy smiled lewdly. A French kiss. Xining was so embarrassed that she was about to cry and kept shaking her head. No need, no need. The boy had drunk a little too much and directly grabbed Xinying's hand, boldly about to kiss her. Duan Xiao, who had been acting nonchalant beside me, finally stopped pretending. He let go of my hand, stood up, and pulled Xining back. He sneered and questioned, is it interesting to bully a little girl? Xining tightly held Duan Xiao's hand and looked at him for help. At the same time, I also grabbed his sleeve. Duan Xiao looked back at me. I didn't make him lose face. I smiled casually as if nothing had happened. My head hurts a bit. Can you take me home? Come with me. Duan Xiao, as long as you leave with me now, I will believe that you only like me and have no feelings for Shining, who has been pestering you. Our eyes met, he avoided my hand. You know that, I can't leave. Seeing that my eyes were welling up with water as I looked straight at him, he let go of Xinying's hand and squatted in front of me. There was a bit more coaxing in his clear and quiet voice. Shining is my direct junior. I have to protect her. Yuan, be good. He raised his hand and gently rubbed the corner of my eye. If you don't want to see it, don't look. Wait for me for a few minutes. I tightly grasped his sleeve, wrinkling the cuffs of his white shirt. Duan Xiao, if you kiss her, I will definitely break up with you. My eyes were extremely dry, but not a single tear fell. Staring into his eyes, I emphasized, I really will. Duan Xiao's patience ran out. He tore my fingers one by one. He stood up and looked down at me. Don't be so petty, Yuan. Meeting his eyes at this moment, I was stunned for a while. The last time I saw this kind of look in his eyes was when he heard that the nanny in his family wanted to introduce her daughter to him. There was endless contempt hidden in his polite refusal. 02, one of Duan Xiao's brothers couldn't stand it and couldn't help but persuade me. Sister-in-law, don't take it too seriously, it's just a game, his girlfriend whispered. Yeah, really a spoilsport. Why come to the bar if you can't play like this? Before I could speak, Fu Xizhou, who had been sitting in the corner of the box and silent all the time, suddenly chuckled. The focus of the whole audience instantly shifted to him. His eyes landed on the girl who had just spoken. His wrist was propped on his head. He asked slowly, you can play, then go and kiss all the men here. After saying that, he seemed to think of something and said slowly, except me, I can't play. He seemed to be very good at grasping the measure, enough to make the girl embarrassed, but not to the point of turning against her. Sure enough, the girl just stammered for a long time, her face flushed red, and she couldn't say anything. Fu Xizhou bit the cigarette lightly and lit one. Leaning against the booth, he threw the metal lighter on the coffee table. He sneered and threw her words back at her. Spoilsport. I stared at him in shock without blinking. I didn't expect that as Duan Xiao's friend, he would speak up for me. I was so surprised that even when the two people in front of me finished their 3-minute kiss, I just came back to my senses, skipping the step of being sad. 03. When Duan Xiao sat back beside me, I just opened my phone and directly deleted his WeChat. The faint satisfaction on his face instantly dissipated, and he looked at me emotionlessly. What do you mean? I told you just now. Break up. Just as I was about to block his phone number, he pressed my hand. Are you going to be endless? Duan Xiao laughed ridiculously, with a hint of thin anger in his confusion. It's just a game. How far do you want to act up? If it were you kissing someone else because of a game, I wouldn't care at all. He knew my rule-abiding character. So he was so unscrupulous. As soon as he finished speaking, the over there suddenly increased in volume. It was Fu Xizhou who had drawn the most exciting truth or dare challenge. Please take any girl present to spend the night. A boy smiled meaningfully and added, I mean, really go to a hotel and everything. At first, Fu Xizhou didn't move. People who knew him came out to smooth things over. Can't you see my brother Fu's shoulders are hunched? He has been extremely clean living for so many years. Just have a drink as a penalty and it's over. The people present didn't take it too seriously either. After all, so far, almost everyone who has drawn this truth or dare challenge has just perfunctorily passed it. Few have actually taken action. Wait, Fu Xizhou suddenly spoke, unexpectedly. He raised his eyes and looked at me. Everyone fell silent and stared in astonishment as he slowly walked up to me and reached out his hand to me. When he smiled with a curve of his lips, it seemed as if he could charm people's hearts. Do you want to consider giving it a try with me tonight? Duan Xiao narrowed his eyes and sized up Fu Xizhou, smiling and reminding, if you're drunk, I'll have someone take you home. Xizhou, this is my girlfriend. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. Fu Xizhou casually glanced at him sideways. So, it's just a game, Duan Xiao, don't be a spoilsport. Duan Xiao looked indifferent. How could I be? My girlfriend is too conservative, she definitely won't agree to you. I'll just reject it for her. But the next second, I placed my hand in Fu Xizhou's palm. Okay. Duan Xiao's smile froze on his face. I thought of the malice in their tones every time I was called a good girl after entering university, as if they were looking at a futile remnant. The alcohol was fueling my rebellious mentality, so I agreed to him as if possessed. Fu Xizhou looked at me holding his hand and slightly raised his eyebrows. He pulled me up and walked towards the door. There were constant exclamations behind us. Damn it, that's Brother Fu. right, I'm not drunk and seeing things, am I? I'd rather believe that Brother Fu has been possessed. Duan Zhao's voice was the most obvious among them. Stop, he was still sitting in the booth. The way he looked at me was like looking at a willful child. In a casual tone, I just wanted to say. He smiled and said, remember to tell me which hotel you're staying in, I'll send you some condoms. I spoke up before Fu Xizhou, smiling brightly, no need. Are you being a bit too eager to please after breaking up and still worrying about your ex-girlfriend's hotel stay? Duan Xiao. I looked at him with pity and refused not to euphemistically. Sorry, I don't really like lapdogs. Before Duan Xiao could turn black-faced, I pulled Fu Xizhou and opened the door to leave. 04. It was only when I was sitting in Fu Xizhou's car that I let out a long, carefree sigh. The depression was completely gone. I politely thanked Fu Xizhou. Thank you, Senior Fu, for helping me out today. Just drop me off at the subway station ahead. I took it for granted that I didn't take that truth or dare challenge seriously, and most likely Fu Xizhou thought the same. He controlled the steering wheel with one hand, and his voice was lazy. Do you know the consequences of lying to them? I shook my head, but I didn't care too much either. Sometimes before playing truth or dare, people would make an oath like, if you lie, you'll be struck by lightning and stay single for the rest of your life. But I don't believe in such things. I took out my phone to see what was said in the group at that time. Group owner, let's play some exciting truth or dare tonight. Whoever lies will be poor for a lifetime, in debt, and never be able to get rich again. My pupils dilated in shock. I read these words over and over again. No, I really believe this. Before I could calm down from my panic, Fu Xizhou had already parked the car at the subway entrance. He jerked his chin towards the door and said with a half-smile, get out, junior schoolmate, it's just being poor for a lifetime, it's not a big deal. No, this is very important. I immediately shook my head and tightly held the door handle. Fu Xizhou seemed to have misunderstood, can't open the door, as he spoke. He leaned over and placed his hand on the door handle. I didn't hesitate to press down on Fu Xizhou's hand to stop him from opening the door. His other hand was propped on the side of my seat, and his body was suspended above me. He quietly trapped me in the narrow space. Fu Xizhou looked down. What do you mean? A mess of thoughts was spinning rapidly in my mind. I blinked and blurted out, I want to sleep with you. Fu Xizhou's eyes showed no emotion, and he retreated to the driver's seat. He pulled the corner of his lips meaninglessly, but I don't want to, me. The atmosphere instantly froze into ice. It was so embarrassing that the top of my head seemed to be shaken. I at least had a mental breakdown 3 times in my heart before I slowly nodded. I didn't let my voice tremble. Sorry, I seem to have drunk a bit too much. I offended you, Senior Fu. I lowered my head and said goodbye softly. Then I'll go first. Fu Xizhou's fingertips moved, and he locked the car door. He started the car without saying a word. I looked back. The boy's side face looked a bit colder and more solemn than before. I guessed that he was angry about my previous overstepping and didn't allow me to escape. So I endured the embarrassment and tentatively apologized again. I'm sorry, Senior, I didn't mean it. I really don't have any thoughts about you. I fidgeted in the passenger seat, my head lowered like a primary school student who had made a mistake. My voice was almost a murmur. I don't want to sleep with you. You're very handsome, but you're definitely not my type. Don't worry, Senior, you're safe. No one responded. The atmosphere in the car completely cooled down. I noticed that the car was speeding up. Why is Fu Xizhou even more angry? 05. Under my nervous and rich mental activity changes, Fu Xizhou stopped at the entrance of a bar. Meeting my confused gaze, he pressed his forearm on the steering wheel and casually glanced at me, briefly explaining, don't forget, we have to be together all night. Oh, so we don't have to do that to avoid breaking the promise. Fu Xizhou is really a clean, living and smart good student. I immediately got out of the car and followed his steps. Fu Xizhou knew the owner of this place. He arranged for me to sit in the booth and then disappeared. A call from an unknown number quickly diverted my attention. On the other end of the receiver, Shening and Duan Xiao were chatting. Senior Duan, why don't you call Senior Sister? Aren't you worried at all that she might cheat? Duan Xiao thought her words were funny. Don't I know how futile she is? She's just saying it casually to be angry with me. There was a hint of casualness in the boy's voice, as if he had everything under control. She must have already gone back to the dormitory to sleep. Shening giggled, but seeing how calm Senior is, it seems that you don't value Senior Sister very much either. There was a few seconds silence on the other side before the answer came, not that much. I was so angry that I immediately hung up the phone. feeling a sense of anger and shame at having the truth exposed, because I really was going to go back to the dormitory, wash up, and go to sleep. My chest felt as if it was blocked by a ball of wet cotton, heavy and suffocating. Just then, the cocktail I ordered was delivered. I directly grabbed it and took a big gulp, trying to extinguish this nameless anger. The waiter looked at me speechlessly. Just as he turned to leave, he suddenly stopped. He turned around sharply. "Miss, the wrong drink was served. This one is a special blend our boss made for himself." He let out a panicked scream like a boiling kettle. I comforted him. "It's okay, I'll pay you the original price." The waiter ignored my words and threw away the tray, running towards the direction where Fu Shizhou had left upstairs. 06. Soon I understood why he was so panicked. This drink, it was spiked. When Fu Shizhou appeared in front of me, my sobriety dropped to 2.5% in an instant. Yuan, how are you?" The boy bent down and approached me. His cold hand was pressed against my cheek. "So cool." I leaned against him comfortably and rubbed against it again, but with 2.5% sobriety, I couldn't help but think of his rejection of me. Reluctantly, I pushed away his hand. I jumped off the swivel chair and walked outside. "Where are you going?" Fu Shizhou grabbed my arm and frowned tightly. I thought about it and replied instinctively, "Senior, I seem to need a man now," afraid that he might misunderstand. I seriously assured him, "But it won't be you. After all, he helped me. It would be too immoral for me to force myself on him." So I strengthened my tone and said word by word, "Don't worry, I won't look for you no matter who I look for." Fu Shizhou's face had turned extremely ugly. He let go of my hand and asked coldly, looking down at me, "Really, Song Yuan, I hope you can do what you say." When I came to my senses again, I found that I had been carried by Fu Shizhou to a hotel room upstairs at some point. At the same time, my self-control dropped another notch. I felt as if I was in a swamp in the tropical rainforest, unbearably hot and restless. Fu Shizhou took off all his upper body clothes. He was left with only a pair of gray drawstring sweatpants. He leaned lazily on the sofa and stared at me coldly. "Come here." My eyes swept over the 6 neatly arranged little buns on his abs. Then they fixed there and I couldn't look away. "Woo-woo." I obediently shuffled in front of him. Fu Shizhou was playing with something that looked like a bottle of medicine in his hand. His peach blossom eyes were blurred and captivating. He half coaxed, half not. "For the sake of me helping you today, would you help me apply some medicine?" I nodded, feeling like a melting ice cream cone, hot and weak, but I still took on this arduous task. "Where does it hurt, senior?" Fu Shizhou took my hot hand and placed it on one of the little buns. "Here." I blinked quickly and changed the subject, completely unaware that my face at this moment was like a ripe and overcooked peach. Fu Shizhou didn't answer. He took my hand and placed it on another little bun. "This place also hurts, junior schoolmate." He returned to his flirtatious look, with a lingering smile. As I was applying the medicine, I unconsciously sat on his lap. He used the same trick again, taking my fingertips and stroking them against his lips. "Does this place hurt too?" I stared straight at those thin lips. Fu Shizhou's voice was hoarse. "Give it a kiss and you'll know if it hurts." I put my arms around his neck, lured to the point of losing all my reason. I gently kissed him, and then pulled away immediately. Fu Shizhou placed his hands on my waist and looked down at me, asking softly, "Why did you stop kissing?" I was a bit embarrassed and asked him for permission. "Can I kiss again?" After getting an affirmative answer, I kissed him again without any scruples. Fu Shizhou pressed the back of my head and took the initiative. He forcefully pried open my teeth without hesitation. 08. When Fu Shizhou's hand had already reached under my shirt, my phone rang inappropriately. Fu Shizhou held my face and continued to kiss my lips, until he looked up and glanced at the caller ID on the phone. Then he pulled back a little. He picked up the phone and answered it. On the other end, Duan Zhao's voice was deep and urgent. "Song Yuan, where are you now? Your roommate told me you didn't go back to the dormitory. Who are you with right now?" Fu Shizhou casually pecked at my lips and perfunctorily replied to him, "Are you calling at this time to bring us birth control products?" I completely ignored Duan Zhao on the phone. I still wanted more and rubbed against Fu Shizhou's arms, chasing his lips. "More." Fu Shizhou smiled, pinched my chin and turned my head slightly. He drawled out an and whispered ambiguously, "I'll give it to you later." Duan Zhao was rarely this manic. "Fu Shizhou, you know how much I like Song Yuan and you still dare to touch her. You're not being a good brother." Fu Shizhou put the phone on speaker and threw it aside. He took my hand and placed it on the drawstring of his pants, teaching me to untie it. Regarding Duan Zhao's words, he replied in agreement. Then not anymore, not brothers anymore. I thought Duan Shao was really annoying, because he kept babbling like an impatient king, causing Fu Xizhou to have no time to kiss me. I snatched the phone, hung up and turned it off. Fu Xizhou smiled knowingly, slightly tilted his head to avoid my nose and kissed me. 09. I had heard countless times from senior and junior schoolmates that Fu Xizhou was a taciturn and cold-hearted person. But he was particularly talkative tonight. Don't move. Let me take it off for you, Yuan. This part is also very beautiful. Don't cover it. He was extremely gentle. His words of praise and encouragement were particularly charming in his hoarse voice. Yuan, you're amazing. Open your eyes and look at yourself in the mirror. Okay, how could it be? It's obviously sweet. Do you want to taste yourself? I almost drowned in such a sweet trap, unconsciously. I did many things that I would be so embarrassed about when I thought back to them after waking up that I would want to bang my head on the ground. 10. When I woke up the next day, Fu Xizhou had already left. He didn't leave a single word. Obviously, he didn't want to have any connection with me. It was just an accident. I sat up holding the quilt, feeling a bit of expected loneliness. But when the warm sunlight hit my shoulder with red marks, I quickly let it go. Consider it as me getting a free ride with the heartthrob of the department. 11. I didn't have a blackout, so I wasn't surprised at all when I saw Duan Shao downstairs of the dormitory. Yuan. When Duan Shao walked in front of me, his expression wasn't as furious as I had expected. His tone was even a bit softer than usual. I deleted all of Xinying's contact information and will keep my distance from her in the future. Can you just pretend that what you said about breaking up yesterday didn't happen? Okay, I didn't know what expression to make to convey my current shock and the indescribable feeling, compared to the behavior of him kissing Xinying and then dumping me. I couldn't understand how he clearly knew what happened between me and Fu Xizhou last night, yet he could immediately come to me to make up. I even suspected that he had a cuckold fetish. I paused and still asked in confusion. Aren't you mind that I was with Fu Xizhou last night? He raised his hand and flicked my forehead, looking relaxed. Stop pretending, Yuan. I already know. You two didn't do anything last night. I was stunned. My first reaction was that Fu Xizhou had told him. Right, his leaving without saying goodbye was already a strong indication that he wanted to hide the fact that I took advantage of him. As Duan Shao spoke, he wanted to hug me, but you really did deceive me. I went crazy looking for you all night, so we're even. Okay. I was extremely annoyed and pushed Duan Shao away forcefully. I said we broke up. Can you stop bothering me? Please stay away from me. I did divination all night last night and it said you're bad for my financial luck. I was tired after more than 3 hours last night. I went back to the dormitory, wrapped myself in the small quilt and continued to catch up on sleep. 12. I was woken up by my roommate until the afternoon. Yuan. There's a meeting in your club. The club president said she called you but your phone was off and couldn't reach you. She asked me to inform you. I sat up quietly. After a while, I yawned slowly. Okay, thank you. Then, like a sloth, I slowly climbed out of bed, washed up, charged my phone and went out. When I walked to the club classroom, I had completely regained my energy. It wasn't time for the meeting yet. The president, including Fu Xizhou, hadn't arrived. A junior schoolmate came up to me hesitantly. She blushed and tugged at my sleeve. Senior, do you know if Vice President Fu Xizhou has a girlfriend? I want to chase him. An inexplicable sense of shame welled up in my heart. I didn't even know why I was feeling guilty. I shook my head at her. Probably not. The junior schoolmate's eyes lit up obviously and she asked, then do you know about Senior Fu? Can you tell me something about him? I shook my head more vigorously, trying to distance myself. To restore Fu Xizhou's pure and flawless image as a flower on a high mountain, I'm not familiar with him. I haven't even spoken a few words to him. The next second, a sarcastic laugh came from behind. True, after all, I was the one doing all the talking last night. All you said was and ah. I could feel a cold aura without even turning around. Fu Xizhou was wearing a windbreaker today. The zipper was pulled up to the very top, almost touching his chin. The all-black outfit added a bit of sternness to him. He leaned against the door frame with his arms crossed, smiling faintly. 13. I was pulled by Fu Xizhou to another empty classroom. He placed me on the table and supported himself on both sides of me with his hands. He stared at me coldly. I didn't see this coming. Junior schoolmate, you're so heartless. What a huge false accusation. I suddenly raised my head, and my lips almost brushed against his chin. Fu Xizhou obviously made an evasive movement. Who taught you this? Kiss and sleep with someone and not be responsible. I put on a straight face and retorted righteously. I didn't mean to kiss you, it was an accident, he snorted softly. I advise you to think again, for no reason. The scene of me asking Fu Shizhou for a kiss last night suddenly flooded into my mind. The straight-backed posture I had just assumed slumped down. Fu Shizhou was clearly angry. He continued to settle the score. Sleep with me and then run away without a word. Then he lowered his eyes and hooked the corner of his lips self-deprecatingly. He looked completely lonely. I didn't expect you to dislike me so much. To draw a clear line from me, not answering the phone or replying to messages, going to such lengths. I realized that there might be a misunderstanding. I didn't have the slightest thought of refuting or arguing back. My voice softened. I don't dislike you, Senior. I woke up and saw you weren't there. I thought you had left first. My phone was turned off all the time. I forgot to turn it on. I didn't mean to ignore you on purpose. He raised his eyebrows. Probably he didn't expect things to turn out this way. Then he spoke slowly to explain that he had gone to buy me breakfast this morning. He had already sent me a WeChat message to tell me. It was just that my phone was off and I didn't see it. The misunderstanding was cleared up. Fu Shizhou's hand landed on my waist, so, he smiled gently, but there was no smile in his eyes. Instead, there was a threat. Junior schoolmate, you'll be responsible for me, right? The last two words were bitten off particularly clearly, as if I denied it, I would meet the Grim Reaper. I shivered and nodded like I was going to my doom. Fu Shizhou finally let me go. I jumped off the table and was about to go back to the meeting. The person behind me called me again. He put away his smile, looking gentle and serious. Afraid you might misunderstand that I'm only doing this for the sake of responsibility, so I want to emphasize this. Fu Shizhou looked at me. His eyes were cleaner than a clear spring. I like you. Since a long time ago, 14, when I got along with Fu Shizhou, I always felt a bit of unfamiliar awkwardness, especially after he confessed, but it seemed that only I was awkward, until that time. After completely breaking through this barrier, I just let it all go. Someone reminded on the school confession wall. Recently, there has been a perverted man around the school. He is very fat. He loves to expose his private parts to girls on the street. He gets pleasure from the girls' screams and running away in a panic. 15. Near the end of the semester, I was already annoyed by memorizing the key points. That day, I happened to meet the perverted man when I was like a firecracker. On the quiet street in the evening, there was no sound of my terrified scream. The perverted man was stunned and looked at my calm expression in confusion. I took a look and clicked my tongue in annoyance. I started cursing completely. Do you think you have something to show off so you expose it on the street? Are you so proud of having a chili pepper hanging on a tree? Compared with my boyfriend, it's really delicate and small. Using all the adjectives for tiny in the world is not enough to describe it. Perverted man, you, don't get defensive. I took out my phone, unlocked it and started recording him. Don't you like to show off? I'll start a live stream to promote you. You're welcome. I kept my other hand in my bag, holding a stun gun. I stared at the perverted man's every move. If he didn't run away but attacked me in a fit of anger, I would shock him so that he wouldn't be able to feel his little chili pepper for the rest of his life. He looked fierce, but suddenly his eyes stopped on something behind me. Immediately, he didn't know whether to cover his face or his chili pepper and ran away. Before I could feel proud of my righteous act of getting rid of the evil, unhurried footsteps sounded behind me. The moment I turned around, I completely froze in place. The moment I met Fu Shizhou's eyes, I wished I could be struck by lightning. Fu Shizhou's peach blossom eyes were filled with an extremely lascivious smile at this moment. He had just opened his mouth when he was interrupted by another voice not far away. May I ask, who is the boyfriend you mentioned? Duan Xiao didn't know how long he had been standing there. His expression was blank, but it was like the calm before a storm. Fu Shizhou quietly stood in front of me. Looking back at Duan Xiao, he smiled casually. What do you think? Duan Xiao stared at him and issued a final ultimatum. Shizhou, this has nothing to do with you. I'm talking to Song Yuan. In a flash, I suddenly remembered a question that I had always overlooked. Why was Duan Xiao so sure that nothing had happened between me and Fu Shizhou that day? Obviously, Fu Shizhou hadn't told him anything. As I was thinking this, Duan Xiao himself said it. Didn't you two stay in the bar all night and never come out? The hand hanging by his side was already bulging with veins. You'd better not tell me. You did it in the bar booth. He twitched the corner of his mouth and sneered disdainfully. Isn't that too disgusting? I walked out from behind Fu Shizhou and questioned, how do you know we went to the bar again? Duan Xiao, were you following us? His smile turned even colder. Do I have that much free time? Then he brought up the chat records of the small group in the department he was in charge of in the club and showed them to us. One of the group members' home was just near that bar. When he was going home, he happened to see Fu Shijo's car, so he sent it to the group. The next morning, he saw that the car hadn't moved, coupled with the image that Fu Shijo had established in the past 3 years of keeping a respectful distance from girls. So he took it for granted and came to the conclusion on his own. Me and Fu Shijo just stayed in the bar all night to fulfill the truth or dare challenge. As for the phone call that Duan Xiao made in the middle, it was also considered as us deliberately making sarcastic remarks to annoy Duan Xiao. 16 Duan Xiao put away his phone and his gaze swept back and forth between the two of us. Finally, it settled on Fu Shijo, and he smiled calmly. Fu Shijo, if you really slept with my girlfriend, I'll fucking kill you. I immediately stepped in front of Fu Shijo and looked at him warily. My voice was stern. Duan Xiao, don't go crazy. I'll emphasize it one last time. I broke up with you that night in the bar. Fu Shijo seemed not to feel this solemn atmosphere. He maintained his usual calm and composure. He pushed aside my hand and walked up to Duan Xiao. He curved his lips seductively and his words were provocative. It wasn't me who slept with her. It was her who slept with me. The taut rope suddenly snapped. Duan Xiao cursed and made a move to raise his hand, but was pressed down by Fu Shijo. Instead, he took a punch from Fu Shijo. This was the first time I saw him full of hostility. Fu Shijo grabbed his collar and leaned in. What right do you have to question me? If you hadn't done those fuck things, would she have left you? Duan Xiao panted heavily and tried to fight back, but he was kicked hard in the chest by Fu Shijo and fell to the ground. He looked down at him almost disdainfully. I'm really confused. What on earth gives you the confidence to be sure that no matter what you do, she won't leave you? Duan Xiao looked at me, who was watching coldly not far away, his eyes deep and complex. I turned a blind eye to it. When Fu Shijo came over, I naturally took his hand and left. I didn't deliberately lower my voice as I complained about my ex to my current boyfriend. He's so weak. 17. Duan Xiao was just a small episode. What was supposed to come would still come. After the last class in the evening, I followed Fu Shijo to his apartment outside. Because he had a super cute Siamese cat, I went there with no ulterior motives at first, until after dinner, when we were watching a movie. Fu Shijo fed me half a bottle of fruit wine. At the slightly tipsy stage, I was so bold that I could pierce the sky. Fu Shijo held me on his lap and asked with great interest, "Do you still remember its size?" I was fed up with his confident and flirtatious attitude, so I just decided to let it all go. I blinked and looked at him innocently. Yes, is there a problem? I pointed to a certain position on my lower abdomen. It reached here at that time. Fu Shijo smiled and lowered his head to bite my lips. Is that so? He started his praising mode again. Yuan had a really good appetite that day. His fingertips slid to my lower abdomen and circled seductively. You'll do great today too. Right. I blushed again, unconvincingly. My eyes were even burning hot. Stop seducing me all the time, Fu Shijo. His kiss had moved to the side of my neck, and his voice was getting lower and lower. Then do you like it? I couldn't control my breathing and let out a soft moan. I murmured in reply, I like it. The Siamese cat was locked in the bedroom by Fu Shijo. The sofa developed a function it didn't originally have. It endured everything it shouldn't have endured. That night, I was forced to say I like you countless times. 18, this time. I woke up in Fu Shijo's arms. I turned around in his arms to face him, remembering our time together during this period and the subtle influence he had on me. Fu Shijo is really good at this. If he wanted to, he could be more promiscuous than Duan Xiao and play more tricks, but he said, he only likes me. When I was in a daze, Fu Shijo woke up, our eyes met unexpectedly, and I only realized later. The progress bar named like Fu Shijo had already loaded more than half without me realizing it. Fu Shijo squinted his eyes slightly, tightened his arm and pulled me into his arms. He rubbed his face against the crook of my neck. He mumbled with a sleepy nasal voice, I love you, Song Yuan, I love you. The lower half of my face was also pressed against the side of his neck. It was a more intimate gesture than when we were passionately entangled, making me feel even more shy. I replied in a small voice, I know. The movement of Fu Shijo holding me paused imperceptibly for a moment. Then it returned to normal. Okay, he didn't ask me anything. 19. Since that day in the bar, Shining had always been beaming with joy. She looked like she was deeply in love, but by chance, on the way out of school with Fu Shijo, we met her, who had just been crying. She blocked our way and her tone was hesitant. Senior, are you together with Song Yuan? Fu Shizhou smiled politely and asked back, "What does it have to do with you?" Shining forced a smile. "I just want to remind you, senior. You might not know what kind of person Song Yuan is at all. Don't be deceived by her." I immediately lost my temper. Yeah, you know me the best. You might as well change your name to Shen Huichong, exclusive version for Song Yuan. From now on, Shining became angry from embarrassment and growled, "Song Yuan, shut up." Fu Shizhou interrupted her, maintaining the last bit of his courtesy. "Compared to Song Yuan, I do know you better." Shining couldn't believe it. "Senior, you mean?" Fu Shizhou sized her up thoughtfully. "A mistress, a home wrecker," he asked politely. "Which term would you prefer me to use to address you?" Shen Ying's face turned pale and then red. In the end, the troublemaker left with a belly full of anger. It was really satisfying. That night, to reward Fu Shizhou, I tried to change from being passive to taking the initiative. Soon I found out that lying down was the most energy-saving position. I didn't take Shining seriously. But I didn't expect that she would dare to accuse me of dating two people at the same time in the school's super topic with her real name, and it became very popular. She presented the whole thing in the form of a video. The girl's eyes were red and she looked haggard. The title was, "This is not about exposing someone. I just want to use the power of public opinion to make Senior Song Yuan realize the seriousness of the problem and stop destroying my relationship with my boyfriend." The whole video described how I had an ongoing connection with Duan Xiao while I was dating Fu Shizhou. As a result, her relationship with Duan Xiao broke down and Duan Xiao broke up with her. Yes, she didn't mention at all that she had interfered in my relationship with Duan Xiao. I closed my eyes, feeling a rush of anger. I hesitated for a long time before clicking on the comment section. I had already prepared myself to be scolded severely. However, top comment 1, "My goodness. The mistress is crying out for injustice. Do you think we won't know about your interference just because you blurred the details of your relationship with Duan Xiao?" Top comment 2, "Even without reading that Weibo post, I don't believe you, little sister. Ever since I learned that Senior Song Yuan caught a pervert with her bare hands, I've unconditionally become her fan." Top comment 3, "I came from that Weibo post and specifically came here to scold you, you mistress." Top comment 4, "Oh right. To prevent the scumbag from hiding, I'm scolding both of you. You two are a disgusting couple. I've already reported that guy surnamed Duan. He won't be able to be the club president anymore." That Weibo post. I scrolled down further, and many people mentioned another Weibo post. It took about half a minute to find the link to that Weibo post. I clicked in and was shocked again. It was posted by Fu Shizhou with his real name. There was a narrative of about 3,000 words accompanied by a few pictures. It not only clearly and convincingly clarified that Duan Xiao had been pestering me persistently, but also firmly proved that Shining was the mistress. Most importantly, 2 minutes after Shining exposed me, Fu Shizhou followed up with a clarification post. 20. I immediately called Fu Shizhou. "How did you guess that Shining was going to slander me and prepared these evidences in advance?" He chuckled softly. He denied it, saying, "I just took precautions based on her nature." I couldn't hold back my smile as I supported my cheek with my hand, but I still pretended to be reserved for a moment. "You didn't have to prepare them in advance. The truth won't be buried anyway. In the end, Shining will definitely shoot herself in the foot." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone, then Fu Shizhou said, "But I don't want to give them any chance to scold you." My mind went blank. I finally understood his intention. Only by clarifying the matter immediately could I be maximally protected from being cyberbullied due to misunderstandings. It was as if fireworks exploded in my mind, scattering my rationality. Only love bubbles were left. After hanging up the phone, I ran towards the club's meeting room to find Fu Shizhou. 21. When I arrived, I unexpectedly heard Duan Zhao's voice through the door. "Fu Shizhou, you're so afraid of me." Fu Shizhou indulged him as if he were coaxing a fool. "Whatever you say is fine. I saw the clarification Weibo post you sent." Duan Xiao didn't care about his perfunctory attitude. Instead, he was full of interest. "You sent it so quickly. It's obvious that you had the evidence ready long ago." "But why?" He chuckled. "Because you're afraid that I'll come out and clarify things." Through a narrow glass window, I saw the electronic pen in Fu Shizhou's hand drop to the ground. He didn't say a word. Duan Zhao's expression became even more arrogant. "You're afraid that if I come out and clarify, I'll steal your credit, and then Yuan Yuan will be touched and get back together with me. If I'm not mistaken, Yuan Yuan hasn't said that she likes you yet, right?" Fu Shizhou came to his senses and picked up the pen. There was no emotion visible on his face. are you done? The door is over there, I won't see you out. Duan Xiao seemed not to have heard him, his tone was a mix of emotion and pride. I know her better than you, it's impossible for her to fall in love with you so quickly, even if she's with you, it's because you've slept together, it has to force it. Fu Xizhou, let Yuan go. This overly confident guy. I found a basin in the storage room next door, went to the bathroom to fill it halfway with water, and then pushed the door open and went in. Yuan, Duan Xiao put away his arrogant expression and called my name nervously. I didn't look at Fu Xizhou immediately, instead, I held the basin in front of Duan Xiao. Duan Xiao looked down at the basin, there was a hint of unexpected joy in his eyes and brows. You. I interrupted him, look down. Duan Xiao did as I said. Can you see clearly? I suddenly let go of the basin fell to the ground. Duan Xiao couldn't dodge in time and his pant legs got splashed wet. I thought your family was so poor that you couldn't afford a mirror, so I was kind enough to get you a basin of water so that you could see your true face. I was so angry that I launched a fierce attack. Why is it impossible for me to fall in love with Fu Xizhou so quickly? Do you mean that I have to mourn for you for a year before I can like someone else? He's better looking than you and more devoted, he's better than you in every way. Should I not cut my losses in time and go for a mutual relationship with him, but instead stay up late for you, listen to sad songs and write emotional essays? Duan Xiao pursed his lips and looked at me gloomily. Just because of that 3-minute kiss, you immediately abandoned me. Is that fair to me? So he doesn't understand human language. I took a deep breath to calm myself down. I forced a smile at Duan Xiao. If you think you've been treated unfairly, you can sue me. He was about to say something more when the club president appeared and interrupted his neurotic speech. The president's expression was serious. The matter between you and Shening has already caused a stir on the internet and has had a great impact on the school. The instructor will come to find you soon. The punishments for the two of you won't be light. Duan Xiao still stared at me stubbornly. As if he wanted to say something more, I held back the urge to gloat in his face and quickly dragged Fu Xizhou, who had been silent for a long time, away. 22. By the quiet and deserted lake. The cloudy weather made it easier to feel irritable today than usual. I had a solemn expression and was speechless as I faced Fu Xizhou. I was whether to explain first or confess my love first, but I heard his apology first. Part of the reason is indeed that I'm afraid you'll get back together with Duan Xiao. But my original intention was really to prevent you from being attacked by public opinion. I sighed. I held his face in my hands and our eyes met. Fu Xizhou, you don't have to be so cautious, even if it's the first reason. You don't need to apologize, because I like you, and things like this just make me think you're cute. He paused. After a few seconds, he let out a soft laugh. It's actually half a year earlier, I hummed. Half a year of what? Fu Xizhou looked at the artificial lake. His eyes a bit distant. I was prepared for you to fall in love with me in half a year, of course. I also thought that you might never fall in love with me, but I've always been optimistic. I thought that as long as I'm good enough to you, better than everyone else, at least you won't like someone else. He said softly, maybe you'd be willing to stay with me. Fu Xizhou, who had always been called the favored one of heaven, could actually say such humble words with a calm face. The sadness outweighed the touch. I buried myself in his arms and sobbed softly. Fu Xizhou, are you a love-struck person? He hugged me back and gently rubbed the back of my head, his voice lazy. I'm in love with you. I hugged him a little tighter and corrected him with a slight nasal voice. No, you should put yourself first and not lose yourself. Fu Xizhou raised his tone slightly and chuckled. Senior, can I borrow Senior Duan for 3 minutes? He said in a self-deprecating tone. If I could control it, I would have stopped liking you long ago. During the days when my relationship with Duan Xiao was flourishing and there were no cracks, Fu Xizhou's secret love was always in the dark. It was an endless night that couldn't be seen the end of. From being unbearable to becoming numb, I don't know when the cumulus clouds dispersed, and the dappled light and shadow fell on his shoulders, I told him seriously, from now on, I'll be with you. Even though our future is still uncertain and full of hardships and obstacles, I will still step onto this path with you without hesitation and spare no effort to overcome every obstacle. Fu Xizhou smiled gently. Yes. He motioned for me to look at the sun that had broken through the last layer of clouds. Look, the sky is brightening up.